A new bill has been introduced that gives big consequences, not to the American people, but to Congress members. Because usually the way it works, Congress, if they make a mistake and screw over the American people, Congress members just get to go home. They have multiple houses, fridges full of food, boats, all the luxuries getting paid from a $174,000 salary. Meanwhile, the rest of Americans have to suffer from whatever mistakes they get, and Congress members get to live their lives in a nice cushy bubble. With this new bill, it's the opposite. If the US defaults on its loan, on the debt ceiling, which is a June 1st deadline, only a few days away, then Congress members do not get paid. So that $174,000 salary out the window if the US defaults. I'll give you more details on this new bill, how it works. Also, when it comes to the debt ceiling drama, it continues with a June 1st deadline coming, with the Treasury Secretary tripling down, saying it cannot go past that date without a debt ceiling agreement made. I'll let you know what came out of President Biden and McCarthy's meeting and where we stand with all that, and some other important updates as well. If a debt ceiling agreement is not made, there are huge consequences and casualties. And this affects not just everyday Americans, but some of our most vulnerable Americans in our society. So Social Security, SNAP benefits, likely among first casualties if debt ceiling leads to default, experts warn. So despite hopeful signs that the US lawmakers are moving closer to a debt ceiling agreement, there is still no agreement. If none is reached over the next week and a half, the US government could default on its debts. Programs like Social Security, food stamps might face spending cuts, according to new analysis from a bipartisan policy center. So basically, what it's saying here is that it determined that a default could impact federal spending in numerous areas, ranging from veterans benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, to tax refunds, education programs, and federal salaries. The BPC also found that there might not be enough money to fully fund Social Security and food stamps, formerly known as SNAP. So basically, if this were to happen, it's given an example. For example, an estimated $25 billion in Social Security benefits are scheduled for 4 different dates in June. June 2nd, June 14th, June 21st, June 28th, totaling $100 billion for the month. Also in June, $1 billion in SNAP benefits are scheduled for both June 12th and June 20th for a total of $2 billion. They noted that these are select transactions for illustrative purposes given their magnitude, and are not exhaustive of all cash flows on a particular day. They are based on daily Treasury statements subject to significant uncertainty and variability. So the BPC does not state that these programs will face cuts in the event of a default, only that they could. Realistically, on a day-to-day basis, fulfilling all payments for important and popular programs such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense, military, active duty pay, would quickly become impossible. Basically saying that it would be impossible to make these payments if we run out of money and if we default. So yeah, looks like the consequences are there, and it's pretty serious. So now we know what could happen if the US defaults, which we kind of knew already before, but just want to give you another perspective. Yellen triples down on debt ceiling deadline. So it feels like it's like Groundhog Day. We just keep hearing the same thing over and over. She keeps saying June 1st, and people are saying, is it really June 1st? She's like, yes, it's June 1st. So she says that we have already seen Treasury, she said, we've already seen in Treasury's borrowing costs increase substantially for securities maturing in early June. Yellen warned in a letter to McCarthy on Monday. If Congress fails to increase the debt limit, it would cause severe hardship to American families, harm our global leadership position, and raise questions about our ability to defend our national security interests. Basically tripling down, saying that yes, it is bad. You have to figure this out by June 1st. So now we know the consequences, we know the deadline and the timeline. where are we at right now? Well, same as usual. McCarthy says debt ceiling meeting with Biden was productive, but no agreement yet. So it seems like every time they meet, it's productive. It was a great talk, but yet they're nowhere near having something figured out. What McCarthy said is, I felt we had a productive discussion. We don't have an agreement yet. So if it was a productive discussion, what made it productive? Or is that just a word that they're throwing out there to reassure Americans? Not sure. Let me know your thoughts on that, but it's not very reassuring with only less than a week away, or a little over a week actually, before this deadline happens. Actually, exactly a week. So what is being done about it? Well, there is a new House bill that would block pay for members of Congress if the U.S. defaults. So bipartisan legislation, Representative Abigail Spanberger and Brian Fitzpatrick comes amid growing fears about debt ceiling breach ahead of June 1st deadline. So the bipartisan bill set to be announced, excuse me, would block members of Congress from getting paid if the U.S. enters debt default or if the government shuts down. So if the government shuts down, which it has in the past, and if there is a default, which would have really bad consequences, as just mentioned, Congress members do not get paid. The No Pay for Congress During Default or Shutdown Act, shared in advance with NBC News, would withhold lawmakers' pay for the duration of a debt limit breach or a lapse in federal funding, an attempt to motivate legislators to prevent either situation. So finally, hold some Congress members accountable. I think this should be done for a lot of other issues as well. And not just a weekly check, but it should probably be, they shouldn't get paid until things get done. Imagine if Congress actually got paid for getting things done. It's actually the opposite. They get paid whether things don't get done, which means that they could get paid for doing nothing. Fears are growing that the divided Congress may not meet a June 1st deadline set by the Treasury Department to raise debt limit or risk a catastrophic default. The proposal from two politically vulnerable members in competitive districts represents a populist move to channel voter anger toward Congress, which is strong among both party bases. If Congress can't fulfill basic obligations tied to the strength and security of our country, lawmakers should not be rewarded with our salaries until we do our jobs. Makes sense. I think a lot of American citizens have said this, but now we're hearing it for the first time from politicians, from lawmakers. They shouldn't get paid if they don't do anything. If they screw over the country, they should not get paid. It's basically how it works in the real world. If someone screws up at their job, they get fired. They don't have to wait a year or so until they get voted out, but they get fired on the spot. Instead, with our Congress, they still get $174,000. Imagine what one person could do with $174,000. That's huge, especially compared to someone who's on fixed income living off $700 a month. So if anything, I think the Congress members should have to switch places with someone who's on Social Security or fixed income or someone on VA benefits. Try to live that life and get a better perspective on what it's like to live like most Americans are, instead of living in a cushy bubble with multiple cars, multiple houses, all that. To give you more detail on how this bill works, take a look at this.
Joining us right now for more on the debt ceiling standoff are the co-chairs of the bipartisan House Problem Solvers Caucus, Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey and Republican Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. He introduced a bill that would prevent members of Congress from getting paid during a default. Gentlemen, welcome. Congressman Fitzpatrick, that's a brilliant idea. How'd that go over in Congress?
Well, it should be common sense. I've also introduced similar legislation when we have a government shutdown. In fact, I wrote a personal check in excess of $10,000 of my own funds back to the Treasury when we had a shutdown in my first term. I think, it shouldn't take that type of incentive to force members of Congress to do their jobs. But if that's what it takes, so be it. And myself and Abigail Spanberger introduced a similar bill with respect to the debt ceiling.
Why the heck didn't they pass it?
Well, it just got introduced, and hopefully it gets taken up. You know, I mean, I also introduced a stock trading ban for members of Congress that covers everyone from Matt Gaetz to AOC and everyone in between. We try to get that taken up for consideration last Congress unsuccessfully. Hopefully, the fate of that bill changes this Congress.
Can I add one thing to your legislation? Maybe not only does Congress not get paid if the debt ceiling is defaulted on, but there's no back pay either. So if it takes you 3 weeks to work it out, that's 3 weeks of lost pay.
Correct. And that's an important distinction because a lot of people will introduce, a lot of state legislators across America, by the way, have introduced a gimmicky bill that basically just delays pay. It doesn't forfeit it completely. It should be forfeited. And that's what our bill does.
Great. Congressman Gottheimer, good to see you this morning. Why don't you tell us where you think things stand right now? Do you feel like there is a deal that's going to get done? Because it certainly sounds like it after everything we've heard the last week.
Well, I think first and foremost, we know that a deal has to get done, right? It's not an option to default and to not pay our bills and to send the markets and our reputation in the world into a tailspin. So I think there's a deep recognition, and I think it's a good thing. We've now focused the players in the room, and I know they're incredibly hard at work. So that's good. And we've got to go fast because time's not on our side, as Secretary Yellen said. So to me, that's good progress. You know, Brian and I and the Problem Solvers Caucus for months now have been pushing for people to sit down and actually talk. We've put out ideas, I think, good ones in terms of calling for suspending the debt ceiling, taking that off the table as an issue and not playing politics with the full faith and credit of the country, and also setting up a bipartisan commission to deal with longer term fiscal issues in our country, because we have to deal with both. And so hoping that's going to be the outcome of these negotiations.
So the Freedom Caucus has been complaining about some things that might be changed. The progressives on the other side have been complaining about things they don't want to give away. Do you guys feel like you're getting what you want, basically, if there is some agreement that's worked out between the two sides? What do you think, Josh?
Well, I think if it's worked out on both sides, we're going to get what we want, right? I mean, everyone's not going to be happy with everything. That's, to me, always a good deal if everyone's a little upset. And, you know, it's not going to be perfect. But the bottom line is we're going to make sure that the full faith and credit of the United States continues, make sure that we don't give China, the government of China, any gifts by defaulting, and that we pay our bills and we do the right thing. So to me, listen, it's going to be tough choices on both sides. I know that's what the parties are working on now. But in the end, we just cannot afford to even think of defaulting. I know some of our colleagues on both sides might think that's a good idea. That is a terrible idea for our country and for people's savings and 401ks and pensions.
What are your thoughts on this? Is this a good way to hold Congress members accountable? Should it go through? Let me know your thoughts on that. That is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully cheer you up a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, I monster bleeding. I was bleeding. I was. Bye. Hi guys, this is Bill. This is the tip of the day. This is something that I want to tell you. This is something that I want to tell you here now. So, as you learn, you be a better person. So keep on learning, and you'll be a better person. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your support. If you like how I got straight to the point, let you know the facts, let you know exactly what's going on, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And if you want to check out any of my other videos, you could click right up here. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.